Hi, listeners. It's Jeff Berman, CEO of Wait What, the company that brings you Masters of Scale. Seemingly all of a sudden, artificial intelligence is everywhere. And for many of us, inside tech and outside tech, it offers overwhelming options and infinite possibilities, leaving us with questions, confusion, and unsure often even where to start. It's why we wanted to bring you just a few of the most compelling personal use cases we've heard from friends of Masters of Scale. And it's why we've launched AI Day, a hands-on workshop that empowers teams to accelerate and amplify their work with artificial intelligence. Both AI Day and this series are not meant to be exhaustive lists of how you can use AI. Rather, we encourage you to use them as inspiration for how you can come up with creative and additive uses of artificial intelligence that will enhance not just your productivity, but also your ingenuity. First up is Morgan DeBaun, founder and CEO of Blavity. Blavity is an internet media company created by and for Black millennials as a trusted voice in new media. Morgan's brands reach over 250 million people every month. She's also the founder of Afrotech, the world's largest tech conference for the Black community. Here's Morgan talking with Reid Hoffman about how she uses AI to supercharge her communications capacity and her team's brainstorming.
I think of AI as really like an additional assistant. I use it for almost everything. I'm writing a company memo, thinking about our strategy, and I will, write out the actual memo and then drop it in AI to say, revise this. Now, I don't put any confidential information in there because we're not quite there yet, right? But I do use it for vocabulary and tone adjustments. And I even play with it sometimes where I'll say, write this like you're a Stanford business school teacher. Write this like Reid Hoffman would write this. And I try to change the tone and see like, how does that change the flavor or how, people might receive the words that I'm writing. I use it as I'm a creative, so I'm constantly thinking about new ideas. And I use it to say like, okay, this is a scenario. These are the 3 ideas I'm thinking. Give me some constructive feedback on how I might be able to improve it in this way. So I use it just really as a thought partner in a lot of different ways.
I love that framing of AI as a thought partner, almost a confidant with whom you can share ideas before you're ready to take them to the next stage. In many respects, you can think of artificial intelligence as a way to test your ideas in the brainstorming process and gain confidence in an idea that may seem just a bit too far out there or not well enough honed for your usual sounding boards. I imagine that famed Hollywood producer Brian Grazer would have made extensive use of AI early on in his career. Long before Brian earned his reputation as a hitmaker in film and television, he was having trouble getting anyone in Hollywood to take his idea for a romantic comedy centered on a mermaid seriously. That idea, of course, would go on to become Splash, the film that helped put him and Ron Howard, his co-founder at Imagine Entertainment, on the map as directors, producers, and creators. Here's Brian in conversation with Reid.
For somebody like me, I like to pick subjects that interest me, or I like to pick people that interest me. And then I like to collaborate. I like to say, let's use Splash as an example. I wanted to find, I didn't think it was possible to meet the perfect, my perfect girl in Los Angeles, California, in a real big urban city, or even bigger New York. I just didn't think it was possible. So I postulated like, what would my perfect girl look like? And where would she be? And where would she come from? And all those postulations. Then I would answer those questions. Now, sometimes I'd bump into somebody and I'd say, what do you think of this idea? And then I'd build off of that. I did this experiment this morning. It's only 3 exchanges with ChatGPT, and it came up with a mermaid movie. Literally.
Although probably it's because it's been trained on a bunch of discussion and data that includes Splash, too.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you.
Yes.
But I think it can be very, very helpful because I think sometimes creators don't want to collaborate with another person right away. They like to iterate and learn, and they sometimes like to do that without having to subject themselves to the politeness of it all. You like to just go like, okay, what are all the obstacles that could be in a relationship between a man and a woman? What do those look like? Okay, now what if you want that woman that speaks another language? You want her to be really sexy. What are the multitude of ways that you could make her look sexy? Well, I could do the following. She could come from Mars. She could come from the ocean. She could all these different things. So it's kind of fun to do that with, say, ChatGPT. Now, what do I do with it once I get there? I have to test it on a human being because that's really the way you do it. You test it on a human being, and then you might test it on groups of human beings. So I do like that. I like the solitary nature of creating, or very early on when you're going to tend to make a lot of mistakes with a machine. I kind of like that.
One of the most energizing things about hearing all these different creative minds talk about how they use AI in their process is realizing the unparalleled scope that artificial intelligence has as a tool to elevate creative potential, really across all media. Elan Lee is the co-founder of Exploding Kittens, Inc., the company behind hit tabletop games such as Throw a Burrito and Exploding Kittens. Elan has redefined and reshaped what it means to be a co-creator by finding partners in unexpected quarters, including AI. Here's Elan in conversation with Maëlle Gavet, CEO of Techstars.
I have to make fun games. For me, that process is very time consuming. And it used to take months or years. And with AI, I've actually been able to shorten that to sometimes just a few hours. And I think the process is step one, define the problem. Like you need really good constraints. Sometimes AI can help you with that, but mostly you just don't want a completely blue sky environment. You want to figure out how can I build a thing that satisfies a very particular problem, that solves a very particular problem. So define your boundaries, step one. Step two, fill your brain with all the things. Don't read some books, read all the books. Don't watch some shows, watch all the shows. Listen to all the podcasts. Like you really, anytime you find yourself with the opportunity to have an experience, either like leaving the house and doing something or consuming some form of media or having a fascinating conversation, take that opportunity. That is business research 101. You just need as many things in your head as possible. And that's very much a lifelong endeavor. And the more you're able to fill your brain with those things and remember them and index them really effectively, the better a creative entrepreneur you will be. The third step is the one that takes so long, which is mixing and matching. If you were working on a movie pitch, you look at the constraints that you set and you're trying to say like, which two things do I want to mix together? It's Jaws versus Sophie's Choice. It's a terrible example, but just
I want to play that game.
Yeah, I want to play that game too. Seriously, but when I'm creating a game, it's really that. It's I really like Uno. Can we combine Uno with Connect 4? No. How about if we take Connect 4 and mix it with bike riding? I'm really into bike riding now, right? And you go through this process of mixing and matching, and usually rejecting as fast as you can. And this is really where AI, in my opinion, steps in. Because I will, instead of working on that mixing and matching criteria for weeks and months and sometimes years when I'm really stuck, I can sit down with AI for a few hours and just work on prompts and say like, look, I'm going to supply the first thing and you help me out with all the interesting things that I could potentially mix this with. And oftentimes it'll generate lists and lists and lists, and they're all garbage, which is fine because that's part of the process. But it's really nice to pick one of them and say, you know what, ignore the first thing I said. An item on your list was competitive rock climbing. Let's start there. Tell me about the things we can mix with competitive rock climbing to satisfy the criteria we talked about earlier and is baked into the prompt. And suddenly my ability to work with this intelligence with infinite patience and infinite ideas is so much better than what I can do on my own. It often won't yield the right idea, but I can usually shortcut weeks off the process because it helps me get through all the bad stuff faster, and it helps me find the little tiny sparks that might be interesting, and then I can grab those and dive right in.
It's such a great way to think about AI as a creative flint you can use to generate tiny sparks. It's then us, the humans at the center of this process, to fan those sparks into flames of innovation and transformational ideas. Let's stick with the heat metaphor as we turn to using AI in the kitchen. Priya Krishna has led the way when it comes to bringing AI to the dining table. She's an author, a YouTube star, and a food reporter for the New York Times. Here she is talking about how she uses AI to help develop new dishes and taste combinations.
So when I have historically asked AI to generate a recipe for me, what I've realized is the more specific you can be, the better. So when I was trying to devise a Thanksgiving menu, at first I started with just show me a Thanksgiving menu. And I found that the recipes I got felt really generic and not very interesting. So I started making the prompts a little more interesting. Show me an Indian-inspired stuffing. Show me a unconventional Thanksgiving dessert. Show me a green bean casserole inspired by the flavors of China. And that's when you really start to see ChatGPT get super creative. And so we went back and forth a lot and ultimately chose 5 recipes to make a Thanksgiving menu for that particular episode. But really, I think it's just asking questions in specific ways, not being afraid to ask follow-up questions. So for example, I'd ask for an Indian-inspired stuffing recipe, and then I'd ask, can you, this looks too complicated. Can you show me a simpler one? Or can you show me one that uses this type of bread instead of this type of bread? And I was so amazed with how responsive AI was to trying to tailor its response to your exact specifications.
Deliciously impressive as Priya's experimentation is, the application of AI in the kitchen goes well beyond preparing meals. Mustafa Suleiman, co-founder of Inflection AI, has thought deeply about the wide-ranging, error-defining scale uses of artificial intelligence we can expect to see. He did this notably in his recent book, The Coming Wave, one of my favorite recent reads. However, Mustafa also embraces AI in the more mundane minutiae of day-to-day life. Here's an example of how he used Inflection's AI assistant Pi when he was having, as many of us do, a little trouble getting his caffeine fix.
Last weekend, I was having trouble with my Nespresso machine. It just basically died on me and it was totally unresponsive. And I tried everything, pressed all the buttons. I mean, there's actually only 2 buttons, but it was driving me nuts. And I asked Pi, I was like, what should I try? And it systematically took me through every possible idiot-proof step, including pull the tray out. Did you switch the capsule over? Is it plugged in? Have you reset it? And then on the 6th or 7th step of this conversation, it said, well, did you know that you can hard reset it by pressing the main button 5 times in a row? Which is exactly what I did. And then, ta-da, 2 minutes later, it started working fine. And I just found this really, really simple, plain, and just awesome because it was patient with me. It asked me really good questions. It was kind of jovial, it was chivying me along, we'll get it this time, no worries, we'll try again. And I was sort of laughing out loud at my own impatience while Pi was, giving me all the encouragement I needed to actually fix this really simple household appliance.
Let's move from the kitchen back into the business world. We're very much on the cusp of mind-blowing transformations AI is going to bring to every industry imaginable. Adrian Garcia Araños, president of Endeavor Global, is fully embracing the transformative effect of AI in his organization.
So when it comes to enhanced productivity, the use case of AI in an organization like ours at Endeavor has been mind-blowing or exponential. Let me explain. In essence, what we are is a network, and networks rely heavily on connectivity nodes. Historically, those connectivity nodes were the people that had the best knowledge of the network, be it because they knew the different backgrounds of the network members, be it because they knew their geographical spectrum or what they covered or coverage areas. Right now, given that all the information, or most of that information is the CRM, we've actually been able to rely heavily on AI to be able to optimize the connectivity within the network. And that has actually reduced significant amount of time. And it's also allowed us to be able to focus on other things that add value to our overall community. So I'd say that it's reduced time, it's made us much more efficient, and it's also allowed us now to be much more strategic in thinking of how we want to add value in the future.
The potential of AI for huge, scalable global impact isn't limited to the business world. It extends to the not-for-profit sector as well. We asked Scott Harrison, founder and CEO of Charity Water, to tell us how he's using AI in his organization's mission to make clean and safe drinking water available to people in developing countries all around the world.
One of the hardest parts of my job over the last 17 years is helping people understand the absolute magnitude and vastness of the water crisis. The numbers are massive. I mean, right now, 703 million people live globally without clean water. It's hard for our brains to visualize a number that big. And we've recently been using AI to find some interesting and some visual ways to help do that. We have a campaign at Charity Water where we ask an individual or a corporation or a foundation to step up and help 1 million people get clean water. Let's say you do help 1 million people get clean water, and every last one of them lines up to thank you. How long do you think it would take? Well, if you didn't sleep and you didn't eat and you didn't take a break and you just spent 1 minute with each person, the answer is almost 2 years. But it's nearly impossible to convey the scale of that impact. You know, we used to try to fill people's local stadiums with people 50 or 60 times. You know, hey, help 1 million people and you've sold out Madison Square Garden 55 times. But with AI, we've been able to get some ideas and some visuals in a whole new way. I do believe there will be countless ways the nonprofit world is going to be able to use AI in the coming years to help advance our mission. And I'm excited to see what Charity Water is able to do in the future.
I love the humanity at the center of this use case. Scott is using AI to put a very human face on a massive global problem that is so difficult for so many to comprehend. And in doing so, he's compelling all of us to do at least a little bit more to help. At the same time, let's not forget that AI does have its limitations, which is something our final guest, musician and entrepreneur will.i.am, is exploring in his own typically creative and idiosyncratic way.
What's my favorite part of engaging with AI? On a user level, I like trying to break it. I like trying to find bugs. I like trying to find redundancies. I like trying to look for the gaps. That's what I like. On a entrepreneur level, I liked building experiences, imagining what the future of a whole bunch of different disciplines are going to be. What's the future of education and forever learning? What's the future of creativity and expression? What's the future of task rabbiting? And what's the future of safety? Keeping things safe? How do you address algorithmic biases? How do you make communities thrive because of AI? And the only way to do that is to address algorithmic biases and data biases. Well, that's what I like about AI. Is it's a new way to dream. It's a new intersection to work in and create in and solve problems with by identifying the obvious problems after trying to break it, after trying to debug it, after looking at the gaps. And then that takes you to a creative space to work with folks in the field.
Well, it's fun when you get to end by agreeing with will.i.am that one of the most exciting things about AI is how it is going to open up new avenues through which creativity can flow. As we've seen from our guests, artificial intelligence is more than just a technological marvel. It's a tool that, when used creatively and ethically, can significantly boost both our productivity and our creative thinking. The stories we just saw highlight that the real magic happens at the intersection of AI and human ingenuity. Let's take these insights as a starting point, definitely not an end, to explore how AI can support and amplify our efforts in every field. It's up to us to harness this potential responsibly and innovatively. We hope this video and AI Day as a whole spark new ideas and ways you can integrate AI into your work, your passion projects, pushing boundaries and exploring new possibilities. So enough talk. Let's see what AI can really do for you, your business, and what you are trying to achieve in the world. Join us at mastersofaiday.com. Thank you.
This is Masters of Scale.
Hey, bye.